and welcome to Cauldron of Terror, a podcast that explores the effects of Islamic terrorism on the West. The book, Cauldron of Terror Hamas, Israel, and the World, will be available for purchase sometime in summer 2026. I am Mark Silinsky, president of Kensington Security Consulting, where we bring education to national security. In this episode, we're going to bring education to education, play on words, but by that I mean we're going to look at a very prominent and influential student group that, among other things, advances Hamas. First, what is Students for Justice in Palestine? Well, according to its website, it says, and I quote, "We promote an agenda grounded in freedom, solidarity, equality, safety, historical justice, and we seek to elevate the student movement to a higher level of political engagement," unquote. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I think much of it is a thread of leftist cliches: freedom, solidarity, equality, and similar terms tell me very little specifically. So first, let's drill down on the proclamation on its website. That might narrow the focus a little bit. It condemns universities for, in their words, quote, "the reproduction of capitalist, imperialist, and settler colonial power, situating campus organizing for Palestine within the context of previous disinvestment movements and struggles against the empires," unquote. Notice once again the terminology: capitalist, imperialist, and colonial Babel. This is clearly the rhetoric of the hard left. I've made a number of podcasts about the Green-Red Alliance. The green is for Islam and the red is for the left. This is intersectionality. It builds a bridge between groups deemed oppressed in a white patriarchy, heterosexual capitalist West. You've heard these terms before. They are all in vogue on campuses and elsewhere too. Okay, so this is the general statement of principles. And here's an interesting point. Quote, "Building on the legacy and impact of previous student movements on occupied Turtle Island, parents, so-called U.S. and Canada, parents, National SJP seeks to empower, unify, and support the student movement for Palestine liberation." Well, there's a lot there, quite a mouthful. If you know what Turtle Island is, well, you had one on me because I had to look it up. Well, Turtle Island is a name used by some indigenous peoples, according to Wikipedia, to refer to North America and Canada. So the United States is, quote, so-called. It's new. I'd be curious to know who those Indians were who called it that. Why, of all the animals and what have you, they have turtles? Why not moose or something like that? I'm sure there's a reason behind it. Now, these claims and objectives seemed outrageous to most of us just a few years ago. When the SJP was created in 1992, it was dismissed as a campus outlier of Islamic extremism. It began at UC Berkeley with a small table and a handful of students handing out boycott leaflets. Interestingly, at the time, SJP's rhetoric was far more civil than it is today, far more. As a spokesman described it in 1995, quote, "We believe in peace coupled with justice," unquote. The unnamed student went on to say, quote, "We oppose illegal settlements, not the peace process." How it has changed. It's empowered, flush with power. Yeah. It took off and it established branches on about 350 campuses. The SJP expanded into really a vast network of campus chapters that advance anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, anti-capitalist, and anti-American agendas. Many SJP leaders openly celebrated the attacks, in their words, as a historic win for the Palestinian resistance. Well, Soon after the attack, the SJP began to attack Israel's response as genocide, and that term took off. The group's chapters across the U.S. and Canada, not all of which are active at any given time, are loosely connected by a coordinating body called the National SJP. I couldn't find any evidence of a professional staff or national headquarters. This is very opaque, as is funding is too. They have Soros money and outfits like that. Some of the SJP alumni have helped organize mass demonstrations. That includes shutting down bridges and public transit in New York City and other major cities in the weeks after the October 23 war began. The SJP chapters remain focused on campus, even when there's a relatively small number of students, because these small students are loud, flamboyant, dress up in picturesque costumes, and draw national attention. Okay, let's bring in CARE, or the Council on American Islamic Relations, because it's provided legal support to the SJP. We've mentioned CARE several times. CARE is an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trial. This is the largest Islamic trial in American history. CARE remains active, and in April 2025, it tried to block Columbia University from turning over records to Congress regarding SJP's on-campus activities. The Senate asked Columbia to hand over records related to SJP activities, finances, and links to Hamas and other terrorist groups, and the overall threat it poses to campus safety. According to the CARE's Legal Defense Fund, releasing the documents could implicate students. Yeah, I imagine releasing documents could implicate students because the students are implicated in these things. I'd certainly be damn curious to know which ones were and what they did. Both the SJP and CARE received significant support from Columbia's faculty, many of whom openly sided with the SJP. Now let's take a look at Within Our Lifetime and the Jewish Voice for Peace. The SJP also receives support from a very small far-left group. Two, really. One is Within Our Lifetime and the Jewish Voice for Peace. The Jewish Voice for Peace bills itself as the world's largest Jewish organization supporting Palestine. The JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace, offers this, quote, "If you're looking for a political home for the Jews on the left, if you're looking for justice, then you belong here." Now, notice the reference to justice. In my view, the SJP and the JVP sound familiar. One observer of these groups, A.J. Cachetta, notes that there are only two telltale signs that message differently from JVP and the SJP. And that's really how each group refers to Israel and to itself. The JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace, generally refers to the Jewish state as Israel, whereas the SJP calls it the Zionist entity. Other than that, the two groups really have strikingly similar positions on Israel and the Palestinians. Now, the chapter at George Washington University was suspended. I mentioned earlier about the suspensions after a few members used a projector to display pro-Hamas slogans on the side of the campus library. Rutgers University suspended its chapter for a while after administrators called them disruptors of campus life. And two other universities in Florida are in limbo. Well, the American Civil Liberties Union is supporting the SJP. They filed suit against Governor DeSantis of Florida because they said that the SJP has every right to exist and to thrive on campus. Here's a name I'd like you to remember, Gerald Steinberg. Now, he is the president of the NGO Monitor that tracks groups critical of Israel, and he speculates that the SJP probably gets money from Qatar. Well, let's turn now to an article in Jihad Watch. Daniel Greenfield of the David Horowitz Freedom Center has repeatedly said that the SJP is a terrorist group. And now, federal authorities are taking action, and 8 students associated with this group are under indictment. A federal grand jury indicted 8 people associated with the University of Michigan's branch for allegedly conspiring to threaten university leaders, law enforcement officers, and businesses. According to the government, members of this group lived, worked, and attended school locally and targeted victims through social media platforms linked to the University of Michigan student groups, including Students Allied for Freedom and Equality and the Student Justice for Palestine. And there were also some other smaller ones, pro-disinvestment coalition elements. So the Attorney General's office of the Eastern District of Michigan said that the actions under investigation included threats against Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit. So those indicted also discussed plans to harm the targets, including their families, too. And they would do this by using poison, bombs, and psychological torture. For example, on May 21st, 2024, 2 suspects, Fayak and Korkaya, then a medical student, agreed, quote, to kill, torment, and terrorize their targets and their families. Korkaya stated, apparently, that the victim's entire family was on the hit list. Taking out an entire family. So this would-be doctor, I don't know if he's still in medical school, wouldn't surprise me. He said, quote, I'm going to be the dirtiest blankety-blank doctor. I'm going to blankety-blank this doc guy, poison her slowly, unquote. And the screed went on there to about burning the house down. And, well, so much for Students for Justice in Palestine. What do you think? Do you have any experience with them? I mean, if you have something good to say about them, I'd like to hear it. If you have personal anecdotes or commentary, I'd like to hear it. But thanks for listening to this episode of Cauldron of Terror, Hamas, Israel, and the World. Once again, the book will be available. We hope to get it out late summer. Nothing in this episode reflects the official position of the United States government. Until next time, thanks from Kensington Security Consulting. Out here.